Hi, welcome. Today we're going to look at the Phoneme Segmentation Fluency Assessment in mCLASS, also known as PSF. PSF measures the ability to segment 2 to 4 phoneme words into individual phonemes. This assessment is given middle of the year kindergarten through beginning of the year grade 1. However, you can progress monitor this assessment as needed for any grade level. This is an auditory assessment. Here are some one-time reminders that you can give during this PSF assessment. If a student spells the word, say the sounds in the word. If a student repeats the word, say remember to say all the sounds in the word. Remember, these can only be said one time. Now we're going to look at how to administer the PSF assessment. Alright, we're going to take a look at the PSF assessment. So when I'm on the assessment selection screen, I'm going to find PSF on the left column. I'm going to come across to whichever benchmark period it is. Click the blue symbol there. The first screen it's going to bring you to is the reminders screen. Here it's going to give you all of the one-time and anytime reminders. I like to keep this screen up as I do assessments just to peruse through right before I give the assessment as a reminder. However, after a few assessments, if you feel comfortable with it, you can take the check mark off so they don't show. But again, like I said, I like to keep it up just as a reminder for myself. In order to go to the next page, you're going to click Proceed at the bottom right corner. And then you're going to see Mr. Say. And Mr. Say is the little bubble that gives you the words you should speak verbatim to the students. You should not veer from these words. These should be the exact words that you speak. Any words that you see in purple font is an action word. That's something you should do or show or have the student do. The words in bold are words that you should speak exactly to the student. So how I would begin this assessment is by repeating what Mr. Say has given me to say. I would tell the student, we are going to say the sounds in words. Listen to me say all the sounds in the word fan. F, a, n. Listen to another word. Jump. J, a, m, p. Your turn. Say all the sounds in soap. At this point, the student should respond with what you see here for the correct response. If the student is correct, then you would click correct. If the student is incorrect, then you click incorrect. If you click correct, it's going to give you an item ready to move on to the assessment. If you click incorrect, it's going to have the student try it again in a different way just to be sure that they understand the directions. So for this case, we're going to click correct. And here I would speak this to the student. Very good, saying all the sounds in soap. And click the blue arrow at the bottom right. Now we're ready to begin the assessment, and these instructions will help the student to get started. What you're going to see here in the top right corner is the eye. The eye will bring up the reminders to help you remember what things you can and can't say. And then you have the up arrow, which will either bring you to the page previous to this one, or it will take you out of the assessment depending where you are within the assessment. So to begin this assessment, I would tell the student, I am going to say more words. I will say the word and you say all the sounds in the word. And the action I would give to the student would be to say the first word on the screen and then tap or click start. So I'm going to click the blue word begin down at the bottom right corner. And at this point, the assessment has not started because I haven't clicked the blue start in the middle. So what I'm going to do is follow the instructions, and it said for me to read the word to the student first before hitting start. So I would tell the student cave, and then I would click start. The student will give me a response by telling me the different sounds that they hear in the word. So I'm going to click them in the order that they tell me. If the student says k, a, v, I'm going to click it that way. If the student for some reason said a, k, v, I would click it that way. And as you see, it indicates every sound that the student says in the order that they say it. If for some reason I mess up, I can click an X and it will take me backwards. If the student did give you a sound but the sound was incorrect, so they said cove, then I'm going to click the section that they had incorrect. I still have this marked because they did tell me a sound, however they told me the sound incorrect. So I would have that marked as a red. If they came back and self-corrected it within the 3 seconds or prior to moving on to the next word, then I would come back and click that again. and it would color it green as self-corrected. If I messed up, click it one more time and it takes it all the way off. As you see now, the screen is turning yellow because my time is almost up. It's a 60-second pro. Up here in the top right, it did have 3 diamonds that lit up blue. Those indicate your 3-second hesitation marks, and that would be the indicator to move on to the next word if the student did not get that part of the word within the 3 seconds. It also had a timer that would time you up to 60 seconds, again lighting the screen in yellow to indicate the time is almost up. In order for me to move on to the next word, I have the word down at the bottom right. Just as I did when I began the assessment, I would click the word take and then do the same thing, where I would indicate the different sounds the student was saying and then click any sound that the student said incorrect. Now if a student omitted a sound, I'll take these off. If the student, for example, said k, v, and missed the middle sound, then I'm going to leave that blank. I would not indicate that any sound was said there, and I would not indicate it as incorrect because they did not speak a sound at all, so it is not incorrect. It's just omitted. At this point, I can make any corrections. If I had done more than 1 word, you would have been able to do the back arrow here to go to previous words, and you would be able to make any corrections that you need. But once you hit the done button, you are completely done with the assessment and can no longer make any adjustments. At this point, it will bring me to the results screen, where you'll see a little running man that will indicate red, yellow, or green. Red being below grade level, yellow being just below grade level, and then green being above grade level. And so you can see where this running man falls is that this student is very far below grade level in this particular assessment. Now over here on the review tab, you're able to go back into the assessment and see what the students got correct and incorrect so that you can make marks of that for instruction. Now that you've seen PSF in action, here are some common scoring rules. If a student does self-correct, you tap the segment again to rescore the response. If a student commonly says a sound in a certain way within the classroom and you know what sound that they are saying, then you may mark that correct. There is a hesitation rule. After 3 seconds, if a student has not said the next sound segment, say the next word, do not tap the phoneme. For discontinue, if a student does not say any correct segments in the first 5 words, the device will prompt you to discontinue the assessment. For PSF, here are common scoring rules in more detail. The first thing is that you're going to underline the correct sound, whether in isolation, blended, or as a whole word. So you're going to indicate exactly what the student said. If the student said one sound at a time, then you underline the sounds according to how they said them, in the order that they said them. If they said it as a whole word, then you would just underline all of the sounds at one time. And if they said just 2 sounds together, then you would underline those 2 sounds together to indicate that. If the student says an incorrect sound, then you underline the fact that they said a sound at that particular part of the word, but then click on the letter to indicate that they said the wrong sound. So we want to indicate every sound that they say audibly, but then we also want to indicate if they said the correct sound or not. The underline part is important because it indicates that the student attempted to say the phoneme, whether it was correct or incorrect. Here you're going to underline blended or repeated sounds. As we said a minute ago, you're going to underline, you just drag the mouse or the cursor all the way across to indicate the segments that were said together. And if a student repeats a sound, then you just click on that particular box until you have indicated how many times that sound was repeated. If a student omits a particular sound, then you're going to leave that section blank to indicate that no sound was made. You're going to mark added sounds incorrect if they were connected to a phoneme. However, you're going to ignore the added sound if the sound was set in isolation. So if you look at the examples on the screen, they indicated the first one as incorrect because they said gl instead of g. However, in the second segment, they said g, where they added the sound separate from the g, and it is not marked incorrect because it was just an added sound. So if a student blends an incorrect sound to a correct sound, that is counted incorrect. If the added sounds are disregarded in scoring, if they're separate from the other sounds in the word. In this scoring rule, you're going to underline the whole word if the student repeats the word without providing any sound segments. This is a PSF pronunciation guide just to give you an indicator of how they look at scoring rules. You can see that the R-controlled vowels are counted as one sound, and you can continue down this chart to see how they count the sounds. Like for example, X is counted as 2 phonemes as opposed to just 1. In this assessment, you will see on the results screen that there are a couple choices on the left side of the screen. The first one is a patterns box where you can indicate items that the student does over and over or repeatedly throughout the assessment that you want to make note of. There's also a motivations button that you can push to indicate how the student was relating to you during the assessment. Were they interested? Were they unfocused? Just to make a note of how they were emotionally during the assessment. There's also a review tab where you can invalidate the assessment. This is only done in an emergency situation because we want to be sure that we get the student's first indication of what they know. Here's a few points to remember for PSF. You're going to underline everything the student says to create a precise visual record. If a phoneme is produced incorrectly, you're going to underline the phoneme, then tap it to indicate the error. You're going to say the next word as soon as the student finishes responding.